Happy Midsummer, and to all you non-Swedes, happy Sunday. It's another beautiful day in the land of no Counter-Strike, because yes, the summer break is upon us, and so we are all struggling with, well, figuring out what to do with our days. I open up HLTV every morning, expecting to see some games, and seeing nothing, and feeling kind of empty inside, devoid of any hope, joy, or prospects. But thankfully, there is Retake the Week to boost everyone's feelings, and the European Pro League Second Division has started. So if you want to watch some truly low-level Counter-Strike, you still can.
Riveting! Riveting stuff.
it might be good. We never know. But of course, yeah, this is going to be prime football watching season. The sun's out, the beers are coming out, I'm assuming. It's going to be a decent summer, just no Counter-Strike. Before we get into the actual few topics we've managed to select for ourselves, let's do the typical member plug. If you become a member, you get access to all the behind-the-scenes content, all the extra videos. I think there's 2 straight up just entire videos. There's 6 episodes of behind-the-scenes content from Retake the Week. And you also get access to, of course, the monthly Q&A, and you get access to voting in polls to determine who's going to be on prospects or and other little things like that. So be sure to become a member. It's $2 a month. Why the hell not? But okay, our first topic is one that we all saw, like we all kind of knew happened. Like it was an open secret that this was going on, but finally the team seemed to have acted upon it. So it's the announcement that Icy is being investigated by Amkal. And as soon as everyone noticed this, we put the piece together. We all believed he was trialing with Cloud9. It kind of intimated that he definitely was, and the team were not happy about it. And then Overdrive made a tweet saying, yes, actually, he has been. Quacke, I know we have question marks about certain sources in the scene, but we're pretty sure Overdrive is on the right lines with this one, isn't he?
Yeah, I can believe this. It's what I thought as well. Like, it's not the way they worded against the like they worded something unfair behavior against the organization. Like,
Yeah.
what the fuck does that mean? Like, it's not cheating. It's not fixing. It's not whatever. He did something to break his contract, I'm assuming, or well, not really since it's benched, but he did something that might have broken his contract. And that's why they benched him and are investigating him in that case. Or maybe not even that severe. Maybe they just don't agree with it. But like, yeah, he's done something, and that something is probably to play with Cloud9. I think the rumors about who's going to Cloud9, they've been around for a couple of weeks now. It was supposed to be Icy and Heavy God, and I forget. They've been talking about so many different people. Like they've been talking about Shalfie, and they've been talking about Clax, I think has been mentioned. Like there's different players, but Icy was definitely one of them. Icy was supposed to probably be the opper. But now he's I don't know how this actually impacts him. Like what can Amkel really do anything? I mean, they've already benched him, so I'm sure they'd be happy to transfer him to Cloud9. But um like aside from burning bridges, perhaps does this actually impact him in any way? I don't know.
I'm not sure it can directly impede a transfer happening. But yeah, when he was part of their starting lineup, I'm assuming they have a contract. Assuming they've actually written it with some thought in mind, they have said, you need the team's permission to go start trialing with other teams. Whilst you're a part of our starting lineup, you can't just go do whatever the hell you want. And I'm assuming he has just taken the liberty and gone and started trialing, playing with these Cloud9 players, just to get a feel for the team and potentially see if he wants to be transferred over. I'm sure if Cloud9 decide they want him, they are going to be allowed to purchase him. There might be a dickhead tax, though. That's the one thing I can think of that might be an issue going forward, is that, yeah, Amkal decide you're going to try and poach our player, essentially, by trialing with him before we officially enter negotiations. You've kind of taken him away from us without our permission. This is kind of just fucked up. So please add an extra 0 on that check. I'm not sure it's going to be that severe, because I'm sure his buyout's going to be expensive anyway. But that's the one thing I'll be worried about if I'm Amkal and if I'm Icy. If I'm Cloud9, if I'm Icy. It's just Amkal being a little less receptive to the checks I'm trying to slide over.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, we'll see. Let's quickly touch on that Cloud9 roster though,
Oh,
because I really haven't paid attention to these rumors as to who they're actually going to sign. So you're telling me the idea might be Shalfie, Icy, and Heavy God.
Shelfie already moved, right? So it's probably not going to be him, but I did see him. Heavy God,
Yeah,
I
he's
think,
nine
is pretty
pandas now.
solid. I think Heavy God is pretty solid because I remember someone mentioned Heavy God somewhere, and then it was made. I don't know if it was like Liquid. We're talking about Heavy God, or G2. We're talking about Heavy God, and they said somebody whose voice actually meant something said yes, but he already has another offer which he's going to take. And the rumor that's been going around for a couple of weeks is like Heavy God, Dev 2 Cloud9,
Okay.
because he does play those like anchor spots, and he's very good at it, and he is Russian, or
No, he's
Ukrainian.
not.
He is,
What? He is
uh,
now?
and Israeli, and Israeli. Yes, I think he's Israeli Ukrainian. He
Right.
speaks Russian.
Oh, Martinenko. Yeah,
It
he's
always it
Ukrainian.
comes
Okay.
back to this. It comes back to this. A large amount of the Israeli, of Israel's population are ethnically and fairly recently in history Russian or Ukrainian, who emigrated there during the last century. So there's actually quite a decent chunk of Israel which speaks fluent Russian, and that's why anarchists can play on Russian-speaking teams. And yeah,
Huh.
there's a few of them in Formula One, like people who are half Russian, half Israeli. So they sort of had the choice of when the entire sanction thing happened, when you couldn't drive under a Russian license in motorsports, a lot of them swapped over to an Israeli license because they could. Um, but yeah, so
Okay.
I think he's Ukrainian. Uh, I'm pretty sure, or Russian. I've seen both, but yeah. Point is, he speaks the language and he can go to Cloud9. Yep.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
I didn't realize his last name was Martinenko. Like,
yeah.
yeah, it's a pretty Ukrainian name.
Yeah. Nikita as well. Yeah.
Okay, never mind. In my head when you said Heavy God, I was like, oh, they're going international, so that opens some other doors. If they're still
Mm.
staying Russian speaking, which I didn't realize was an option with Heavy God, then yeah, we're going to
It's gonna
expecting that
look
sort
really
of
weird.
group of names.
It is gonna look really weird. Like it is. I mean, yeah. Unless they get a Russian as fifth, it is gonna be like the European flag, and you're gonna have one guy from Israel here, and you're gonna be like, what language are these guys speaking? But no, it is.
Hmm.
I'm fairly sure. I'm. Fa- I'm. Fa- I'm. Fair. I don't think I've ever seen him speak Russian, but like he's been linked to the team so hard for so long. At this point, several weeks, and like he has those ties. Like he has the background for it. So I think that is gonna end up happening. I can't remember where it was I saw that he was linked to another team. I think it might have been. Oh no, yeah, it was Into the Breach. I think Smooya said outright that like, yeah, we wanted to get Heavy God, but he had another offer which he would rather take. And then it's like, well, yeah, it's Cloud9
Yeah.
because that's what's been talked about.
Oh,
Yeah,
to be honest, that doesn't really shorten down the list of potential landing spots. For Heavy God, better than ITB's rebuild, it's quite an extensive list of teams. Um,
yeah. Only
Considering who
only one of
needs
them
his
is Blizzard
roles.
though. So, yeah,
Yeah. So okay, I had no idea. I'm going to be very honest. I had no idea that was on the table. I
yeah.
do wonder who Cloud9 are going to get as a potential fifth. Because if the talk was Shafi, wasn't Shafi calling? So are they
He
looking to
was.
bring in an IGL, or are they going to have to just rely on Boomich if it all
No
falls
idea.
apart?
I think they just wanted Shelfie as a player because Shelfie as a player is also good. But I can't
I
remember who
guess.
else. I mean, it might have been Clax who was mentioned. I think Forrester has been mentioned. I think. Um, I mean, there's a lot of players that could have been mentioned here. Mayonnaise has definitely been mentioned. Um,
Yeah, that'd be a good. That'd be
yeah,
a good one.
you could pick pretty much anyone out of this split of teams. Like, if you bring in Clax or Delaytus or Forrester or Resalt or Kenzie or Mayonnaise or like, yeah, any one of these would probably fit as Cloud9's next fit. But yeah. I think Icy is, especially with this, I think Icy is pretty solid in there, and I think Heavy God will be the new perfecto, so to speak. Aside from that, I have no fucking clue about this team.
Yeah, the icy questions have been though, in terms of just his playstyle, how effective he is. Because I've
Mm.
watched a lot of Amkal, and whilst he does come alive in moments and has great rounds, he can often fall into the CIS trap, stick into that very passive AWP style, uh, really lacks assertiveness, doesn't impact the game unless things fall in his direction. Essentially, the problem I have with it. So perhaps, yeah, perhaps it can work. It depends. Maybe they require more from him, they ask more from him, and he takes those next steps forward. But yeah, it's an interesting roster to say the least, just because of the unknowns surrounding it.
Yeah.
But all right, that's the IC drama in inverted commas. Not much of a drama. 2 tweets and a benching. Nothing too serious.
If there was a manager or a CEO who was like madly tweeting about this, then maybe
Yeah,
that would have been more interesting. There might be a Telegram channel out there or something where all of this is happening.
yeah. Don't really follow those, unfortunately.
No.
Would be funny though. Right. Next, a little bit of news. Entropiq have announced that they are dropping their roster entirely, and I've put this in the notes under the pretense that they can't play the major quali. I find that dubious because again,
Mhm.
teams relying entirely on the making through the open qualifiers to then win the closed qualifier to then get sticker money to operate seems ridiculous, especially for a team this small and this like relatively weak. There's a reason they're not in the ranking spots to make it directly to the closed qualifier or to the RMR. They're just not that good. So the fact they dropped the roster, I think, is just this team wasn't that good. They're going to try again if they try if they stay in Counter Strike. They're going to take a new approach. But this roster wasn't it. That's quite simply it.
I I don't know if they've said it outright, like if it actually has to do with finances and stuff. I think this is the team. I think with iNation and whoever else it was that dropped their team because of the major qualifiers. I think your point is like, yes, they weren't gonna make it either way. Like if you were hanging on with the prospect of making the major to even complete this season financially, like if that was a necessity, then you're doing it wrong either way because this team wasn't gonna do that. So at that point, that's just bad. That's just a bad investment you made.
Yeah.
With this team, I think they just recently, like just at the end of May, they made some pretty high value signings. Like they took in Buzz, they took in Regali, and they took in Fasher. Like Buzz and Regali especially, that adds a lot of value to this team, I think. Uh, to the point where as a five, come in 4 months' time, when we're approaching the major, I could absolutely see them being worthy of being at the major had they continued developing with the caliber of players they have. And then maybe just 1 week after they actually announced that roster, this is when the changes happened. And 1 or 2 weeks. And this is probably the one where I think it does sort of make business sense because they might have made that pretty big investment with the hope that, all right, guys, now we have an actual chance of making the major and we're going to make that chance happen. And if we don't, we have to shut down for next season. And now that chance is gone, so they have to shut down for this season instead. So
I
I think
have
that
some thoughts on that.
financially, I think that could have been realistic because I think they would be paying quite a bit to both Regali and Bus and Fasher, like in salaries, and like it might be that like we're hanging on by a thread, but this is our last chance of being competitive in CS, and if this doesn't work, we have to leave. And now that decision has just been pushed forward by 6 months, and it, yeah, um, it
Okay,
just became a straight no instead of a like if we make the major. So I think I don't know if I can call it a shame. I think it would have been better if they had the chance, but I mean that chance also would come at the expense of someone else who might have trouble financially instead. So um But this is exactly the sort of team that I expect. This is exactly the sort of team that I expected to shut down in light of these new changes. The teams that have made a bigger investment recently, hoping to make the major, and then just sort of getting that door slammed shut. And now you're stuck here with a fairly expensive for these guys team, which is not going to be able to do anything to like save the org. And then you're just forced to shut down. So this is exactly the sort of team that I think would have done that. So I wasn't looking at Entropiq specifically, but I was expecting something like this to happen more so than the iNation thing.
Here's the problem. They did have a chance. They signed this roster the 1st of May. They played 3 events in that time and won a single series. They played nobody of particular note. Like, this is a great time to play Endpoint. They lost to Endpoint. In their opening series, they lost to completely anyone. Like, they lost to just gibberish teams. Their only victory comes against Veni Vidi Vici, who is a random group of Slovaks and one Czech that I've never heard of. Actually, I've heard of Henki G, but that's not the point. These are terribly
We've all heard of
small
Henki G
names
for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
Henki G is so funny. Why he's even notable? It's just because he had one decent frag movie, and then Oscar named him as his bold prediction for the top 20 list because he was like, I don't really pay attention to Slovaks, but I saw this one frag movie of this one guy. He looked decent. That's the only reason why we all know Henki G at this point.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's the only team they beat, and I'm going to be honest. It just seems like they made terrible signings. Like, it wasn't like they had no chance because the scene changed changed from underneath them. No, they had. If they could have actually competed at these events, they probably would have been in good stead. But instead,
yes,
they made signings based on, I guess, someone reading tea leaves. Like, Regali's a good player, but like Thasher, Buzz, when you don't have a good IGL, no offense, Tizian, but I've watched your teams play. It's brawly, it's puggy, and you made use of certain talents, but it wasn't a consistent, intentional style. Something people have noticed, well, should have noticed at this point, is that Thasher, when he's not playing in that Bird from Sky system, massively struggles to deliver on his mechanics. Like, he's just not the same player. So I really struggle with giving them even that much credit. Like, they just made terrible moves, had the chance to play their way into this qualification, and just got shat on. And now they've given up. They've essentially just given up because, yes, it probably is a financial burden to keep these players when now that they've fucked up and now that they've lost, they can't go and qualify. I think it's silly to say, though, it's just because the major change. No, it's you lot made bad signings, lost a bunch of games, and now have to give up. It's not the same thing.
You'll notice my tone of voice is not as hectic as it was the first time we were discussing this, because over time, I've sort of realized that actually the Valve ranking is pretty reactive to like one-off performances. Like, the goal is to be consistently good, yes, and like that is what rewards you with the spot at the major. But there are also some teams who have just sort of shot up recently with like standout performances, like to the point where, yes, if Entropiq had finished top 4 in any of these 3 online events, they probably could have had a decent amount of points. I don't know where this Entropiq roster actually sits. Let me just control F this. Wait, fuck, that was the Americas ranking. Yeah, they're 106th, so they set about 300 ranking points off, or like 250, 300 points off.
Yeah.
I think that's doable if you do well enough here. I think with like the caliber of teams that are at like in like Y games.
Yeah, they could, if based on the signings they made, you'd expect them to compete, make the final of like a Y games. There's so many academy sides. There's so many nonsense sides. You should have beaten these people.
Yeah, they should have straight up won this event. They should have. There's no, yeah. So like, yeah, they did just fucking fail. Like, they did just do that. But yeah, and if they win that, then yeah, they're definitely in close qualifier territory. I thought the Valve ranking would be more of a slow burn where you needed a couple of events to actually move up. But we've seen a lot of people be like, win one event, move up 20 spots. Now you're in major qualification territory. So, I mean, we saw NIP go from like, what, 45th to 11th over just Yala, which is honestly a big event and, prize money is a big factor. But like, if they can go from like Passion UA territory to solidly in the RMR invites in one event, then
Yeah,
doing good at one online event is enough to go from, you know,
100 to
top
50th.
100 to top 50. Yeah,
Yeah,
that is going to be good enough. So you're right in that. I'm not particularly upset about Entropiq moving out of here. I think it's a shame. Like, I think it wouldn't hurt to let them do the open qualifiers. Like, if they still existed, it wouldn't hurt to see that, like, to have that chance. But it's also not like it's a massive loss. But I do wonder if there are any more orgs who were sort of. I wonder if we'll see any more orgs sort of try to. I can't think of any teams right now, but there are a few that I could imagine were sort of hinging on making the major. Um, which I mean, they probably just haven't really decided. Maybe they're still holding out hope to do like one good online cup or something. But well, I guess we'll see once the invites go up. But yeah,
it's at the end of
this is a
August, right?
new
Isn't it,
like
or start of August? The
August 7th is when the invites
August
go up.
7th.
It's actually quite
Okay.
early. It's about 3 weeks before the actual qualifier, so it is sort of early. Um,
I mean,
yeah,
considering the
and what
visa
is that like?
situations in the world, I think it's fine.
The qualifiers are online, so that's fine. But
Yeah,
it's a
to
full
get the process
fucking three
started, I
months
think
before the actual RMR. Yeah,
it's fair. Um, Now,
yeah.
the one thing I do want to say though, I was listening to, I believe it was Snake and Banter this week, and
Mm.
this topic actually came up. Not in Tropic, obviously they don't talk tier 3 like we do, but the topic of the RMR qualifier changes came up, and it was refreshing to hear someone basically say exactly what I said on this show, as to if you want to play at the fucking biggest event and make all those fucking millions, play in the fucking like ecosystem, be a part of the actual events that we run and earn your spot. Like, be a part
Yeah.
of the ecosystem and then you get rewarded. Funnily enough, it's a fairly common sense point, I think. And I'm glad to see that teams who have failed or who simply never did participate or wanted to throw together a random 5-stack 2 weeks out can get fucked. I'm glad that's happened. And yeah, we'll see how it ends up shaking out towards the end. We'll see how much like this European Pro League second division like will have an impact on all this. Like these tiny events,
Yeah.
these teams trying to grind. Because Revenant, for example, are a team that many people want to see grind their way up. If they are as good as the names suggest they might be, like them coming in winning 5K at the Pro League second division, and then potentially getting another good result could put them in good stead. So I think it'll become fascinating to follow teams in these online cups because all of a sudden the cups hold way more weight. It's not just the online cup. A lot of teams, honestly, have used them in the past as just practice. Some teams that are more interested in making the big events do not necessarily activate their entire game plan when playing CCT Online Series 16.2 West Europe. Like, no one is that invested. But if all of a sudden making that extra 5K is the difference between you making the major or getting a chance at making the major and not, I think a lot of teams take these cups more seriously. I think it's improved maybe the tension, the drama that we can actually watch when we're following these low-level games.
I still think the timing is unfortunate. We wouldn't even have this discussion to begin with if it just happened 2 months earlier. And there's no reason why it couldn't have. Like, it was one tweet. We needed one single tweet to know that this was happening, and then we would have had a completely different scene. I think Entropiq at that point, well, they could have just not signed Regali and Buzz at that point if they wanted to, or they could have still gone for that and tried to go a bit more hard into these online events. Maybe they were saving strats for the open qualifier, quote unquote. I don't know if they even played any maps before the change, but like, I still think the timing could have been so much better. It's also kind of boring because yes, it does add sort of a tension, but right now I'm sort of holding out and waiting for that tension to be a real thing in the winter, like in the next season. That's when I'm waiting for. Because right now it's like we have a player break. Like we had a couple of decent events where they were mostly like invitational, like nobody really nobody really played to qualify in the Fire League thing or the Yalla thing. Like it was sort of like like standalone events that just sort of happen, and now we have a player break and we have no play, and then we're coming back to the Esports World Cup, which is also just a bit random. Like we have a couple of top split teams, but then we also have some random qualifiers because Liquid failed to qualify, and like we have it's going to be this weird format, and like it just I would have liked to see it a bit earlier, because then we could have had this really nice end to the season with like, oh, we have Dallas and Chengdu, which are now actually very significant because they are going to set the stage for major qualification. So I still think the timing would have been awful. I will maintain that. But yeah, um, sad for Troy. I mean, we know there isn't a huge amount of money in esports. Like, I don't think Entropiq put together this five as a random five stack. I think they did try to make a genuinely competitive team, but I think they might have sat down at some point in like May and gone, guys, we need to make Shanghai or we are just going bust in CS. Like, there's no, if we make this big team, like this fairly big name team, with the salaries we're paying and everything, if we make this happen, we need to make Shanghai or we're shutting down. And I can understand why you would make such a decision in esports. Then, of course, the roster didn't work out. Surprise, surprise. I didn't think it was a particularly great roster either, but it's a big name roster. So, like, relative to what they've had in the past and what similar level teams have had. So I think it's a shame for them. We talk about how there isn't a lot of money. And that sort of brings up a greater discussion about the esports ecosystem. Should teams really need to be hinging on the sticker money to stay afloat? No, not particularly. And that's more like maybe we need some more systemic change to make a more friendly ecosystem in esports where you can have a more stable operation financially. But that's a completely different kettle of fish, and I don't know anything about that stuff. So
Yeah, you're going to need a manifesto written for that point, because
we're not even going to
I
start
don't see
with
how
that.
we'd even approach that. Like,
I think that would be a long term
like,
thing. So it's not exactly something we're going to do.
Sounds like
ahead of
money coming
Shanghai.
out of nowhere. Like, it's just like, and then all of a
Yeah,
sudden, the viewers started paying, and all our dreams came
in
true.
the end, that's what's going to have to happen. Like more and more, I just think that yes, eventually we are going to have to move to a model. I don't want to say it out loud because then it's going to happen. We are going to have to stop watching CS for free on Twitch. Like at some point, we are going to have a paid model. Like to some degree, at least. Like at some point, the consumer is going to have to start paying. Like if we want more money in esports, the consumer is going to have to start paying, which is a shame because I hate having to pay for sports. But I think the way stuff is going, eventually we're gonna have to reach that point. I hope it's not anytime soon. I do like watching stuff for free.
Well, yeah, I have paid for sports in the past. And if there was more sports that I'm interested in that was watchable at my time zone, I probably would still be paying for them. So yeah, give me a Counter-Strike esports broadcast package at $80 a year. I probably would end up paying for it. I mean, they probably won't charge that much. They'll probably charge like triple that. They'll charge like real football, like sort of money, like real basketball league type money. But well, that's another question.
Yeah.
A topic I've just thrown in because I realized it just came up kind of indirectly, and I want to quickly address it because it's still blowing my mind. I can't understand why this is being done. But the Esports World Cup format for the Counter-Strike is the single shittest thing I've ever seen.
Do you remember?
So confused.
Do you remember we actually discussed this, and I put forward a theory for what the 15-team format could be?
Yeah.
And this isn't actually too far off that.
It's really not, and that's terrifying because the idea was pretty bad, but they've made it worse, I think.
I think my idea was half decent actually, because you actually still had 2 games for qualification and pretty much anyone could make it. Now you have 1 game where it's like win or lose, and if you win, you're through to playoffs. If you lose, well, you're down to this last chance stage where one of you have to play the GG the Middle Eastern qualified team.
Is that where GG go? They go to the play-in stage directly.
They go directly to the last chance stage, but I think the opening stage, it's 7 games and 7 winners will go straight to the playoffs. 7 losers will go to the last chance stage.
It's
where they
called the
will
play-in
face-
officially. They've called it the play-in stage for some reason.
Oh, in HLTV it's last chance, but yeah, the
Oh,
play-in, where they'll play the GG How. So GG How don't even get the chance of immediately going to the playoffs,
Jesus.
and then one team out of the play-in stage go to the playoff stage. Where honestly, they're probably going to face the highest seeded qualifier from the opening round, which is probably going to be Spirit or Mouse.
Oh
So
God.
they're fucked either way.
This is ridiculous.
So if we go by ranking here, if we go by straight off of ranking, it should be Spirit Sashi, Vitality M80, Mouse MIBR, FaZe FlyQuest, Navi Furia, G2 Mongols, and then VP Complexity, and that should be the first opening round.
Those are the BO3s. Yeah.
Those are the opening rounds. I hope they're BO3s.
They are BO3. According to Wikipedia, they're
Good.
BO3. It's not the worst thing to
Yeah.
ever grace our scene. It's somewhat salvaged.
And then
And there's
I mean,
a BO1
complexity or VP go down to this playing stage, but that's basically where like FlyQuest, Sashi, Furia, Mongols, MIBR, M80, this like middle split are gonna try to compete for a spot. I'd say it's probably gonna be complexity or Mongols, maybe Furia making it through here. And then we have playoffs, which is what is actually gonna matter. I'm not gonna watch a single map ahead of the playoffs themselves. So have fun at this event.
Oh, this is a mess, though. I'm sorry. This is
Yeah.
Why not add one more team? Like, why not have 16 teams and run a really good, like, rigid format? Like, why this?
Yeah.
Why this? You're already wasting all this money. Like, do it properly.
Even the format I put forward wasn't even that bad. Like, you ended up having an opening the way so I'll just recap this. The way I wanted to split it last time we talked about this, you had I split it into 5 groups, basically groups of 3, where the top seed of each group just they get like one step ahead, and then the 2 bottom seeds play 1 game against each other to face the top seed one, and then one team goes straight to playoffs, and the second place team out of all of them play like a round robin playing stage, and then you have a 6-team playoff. And I think that made it wasn't even that much worse. Like if that was
I still hate it. I'm done with 16 playoffs. I'm sorry. I really, they annoy me more than anything.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of them either, but like if we have to,
couldn't have just been a 16 team double limb BO3 bracket.
Like, it's not they had teams banging on the door. They had teams banging on the door to make it here as well. Like there's no reason. There's absolutely no reason why you couldn't have one more ESL ranking invite. Like like teams they have this like partnership thing where like they get a share of the revenue, because this is an event that's also going on in like a dozen other games or something. So
it is, yeah.
There's absolutely no reason why you couldn't have like Liquid. I mean, look, I don't really want Liquid here. They lost the qualifier, but they were they're absolutely frothing at the mouth to attend this event in so many other esports. Why not just put them in the CS event as well? Like if you're gonna put someone here, just like, or if you're already going by world ESL ranking, like you could have done fucking anything. Like Astralis, they would be happy to be at this Blood Money event. Like, just put someone here, please. So yeah, funny format, funny event. I'm not gonna watch anything except for the playoffs, if even that, because I just kind of hate this event.
Yeah, I'm gonna watch the entire lot because I am a degenerate who will watch endless Counter-Strike as long as it's on. So I can't wait to see M80 upset their opening BO3 somehow.
Without mobs?
Without mobs, and it all go to shit immediately.
Yeah.
It's an interesting
Maybe
idea.
also M80, I think I might just straight up get picked apart. I don't know anything like details-wise, but I think there might be some more players leaving, which would suck for them.
It really would.
Yeah.
But okay, let's go on to something more drama-based. Maui had the pleasure of inviting StuTK onto his stream, and what unfolded was honestly just sensational. Like, I have never seen a man give away so much inside information on a team while simultaneously bigging himself up for doing basically nothing, and starting shit with other people in such an efficient manner. It was incredible. The long and the short of it is, he's painted a very negative light on basically what's going on within the team at G2. He's taken casual pot shots at like Taz, for example, and at the same time, basically started a beef with a bunch of other people. It seems the way I interpret most of what Stewie has done and said here, in terms of both his written and spoken statements, is he's still just a child. Everything came off so incredibly immature, unaware of what it is he's saying, just no consideration as to things he should and shouldn't be saying in terms of what's going on within a team. You know, why they might not want you to start talking about the atmosphere when you first showed up. Also, his interpretation of how a professional team should run in terms of the vibe seemed really childish. So I can't see why. Well, for one, the reason why he's decided to go and do this is because he is immature. But I just can't see how this can positively reflect on him at all.
It really doesn't. I saw someone say that like the fact that Stewie didn't even know who m0NESY or Dunk were, like because he just hasn't been watching CS at all, apparently.
No,
Or even
as Hawker tweeted about. Everyone tweeted about it. The worst part is, I mean, Richard Lewis being one of the people he started beefing with, essentially. The reason this is hilarious. Richard Lewis, being a journalist, put in half an ounce of effort. m0NESY was signed to G2. Stewie was still actively in the scene. They played at events with G2 with m0NESY.
Yeah.
And he still didn't know who the hell m0NESY was. I mean, if that doesn't say checked out, I don't know what does.
That's just a nightmare for any general manager trying to do anything. Like he even supposedly tried to get back into CS when he played for Legacy. Because they put him in when as a trial thing when Coldzera unexpectedly left.
Yeah, that went terribly.
Yeah, but he still supposedly tried to make an effort, and he apparently didn't even look at the rankings. Like he didn't even like go on HLTV a single time.
I mean, in that month, he technically was signed officially for a month, and he didn't discover the name Donk, like as one of the top players in the entire world.
Yeah, he was literally coming into a team who just played like a pretty sensational major for them. Like they made the major and they were there, and like that was pretty big. He came into that team. They probably would have been talking quite a bit about this team, like about this event, about being at the major. And no, it didn't even come up. Like it just paints such a bad light as like someone who cares about CS, which he obviously doesn't at that point. So it just paints a really bad light for like any prospect of him getting signed. Yeah, about like the G2 details as well. I feel like
that's just silly.
I feel like that's interesting, but it's like I don't really want to put too much into it either because like he might just be saying shit. Like he might just be that's just his perspective.
Well, honestly, him saying it felt negative. No one was joking around. I feel like maybe they're just a group of professional 25-plus-year-olds. Let's be honest, most of them are not like children anymore, who actually act like they are 25-plus years old, taking this shit actually seriously.
I'm a big proponent of like a good team is a team where you do have a lot of fun. A good team is where like you aren't strictly like this all the time. Like you do have I think that is, well, at least it could be the case. But they were also in a very rough situation. Like their IGL was gonna miss this event. It was like end of season. Nexa, let's be honest, he probably was already out at this point, or like basically, on the edge, and they probably all knew about it. Rough situation, especially considering like Nexa, this is like a friend hire, and like your friend hire isn't working out. Like, what do you do when you're on a team and like someone you know well and someone you like is doing pretty poorly? That's a pretty bad vibe. I mean, it's a rough situation. Of course, people aren't like joking around, but yeah.
No, just amazed. Just amazed. this whole situation. There's not much
Yeah.
to really add because it's been honestly you'd be retreading ground that's been far better trod, to put it weirdly.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't really have much more to add to that. I just thought it'd be interesting. We have to mention it because it's taken up a lot of general interest over the last few days. So it's worth recapping, retaking. Really weird one.
Yeah.
Whatever. Put the spliff down. Just
Yeah. I mean, like, yeah. It's yeah. I mean, yeah. It's his perspective, I guess, and hopefully this is like the final nail in the coffin, and we never see him in CS again. Because it would just be dragging on the inevitable. Like he has to be out of here. It might as well just be now.
yeah, let him go play Valorant, a game befitting his mental age.
Yeah. Dude, with the stuff he's saying, it's just a miracle they could even win, though. That's just how they could even win Dallas. This might be the most unlikely tournament win ever, just because of like, especially with all of the stuff he says. Like, it really sounds like a team that has no fucking right winning a big event, and still they did it. So, yeah, I mean, that has to be one of the most unlikely event wins in Counter-Strike history, to be honest.
Yeah, in terms of those sort of factors, it is. I mean, it'll not compare to the Na'Vi 49% win rate fucking major win in terms of actually what happened in terms of the level of play. It's just the fact that they were able to extract that level of play despite all the factors is crazy.
Yeah.
The winning rounds with 2 complete bots on the roster usually is pretty difficult, but hey, they managed it. Full credit to the players who actually did something.
I mean, they also had 2 complete bots on the roster. Like they had the same statistic.
That's
they had
what
2
I'm saying.
below
I am saying
0.9.
this is G2. I'm not referring to Na'Vi anymore.
Yeah. Oh,
The
right.
fact that
Yeah.
G2 managed to win like enough rounds with complete nobodies. I mean, Na'Vi didn't even win enough rounds. They were below 50%. They just won the right rounds, which is absurd.
Yeah, I have to check if how. Yeah, G2 had 52%, which
is very low, but it's not sub 50, which is alarming.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, okay, let's
I
want to wrap this one up. I want to get onto the fun stuff because we do have a couple of fun things planned just to end this episode because there wasn't much to talk about. I'm saving. I know you wanted to do more recapping of the season. We can say that for next week. For now, I'm going to kick off proceedings with a blind ranking. I'm going to present you, Quacke, with a series of players in a random order. There's not going to be any order to them, but you have to rank them as I tell them to you. And this is going to be players from this spring season, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And
just in general? Like, is there a category? Like, did they play together or against each other, or is this just anybody?
No, it's just players from this last season of 2024.
Right.
I've just realized I don't have the all the graphics loaded. So I'm
how many are there? Because I have a
it's 5.
I have a paper
it's top
here.
5.
All right, good.
It's not the top 5. It's just 5 players.
Yeah, just 5 players.
I'll give away that much.
Yeah.
I've not just gone Donk, ZywOo, m0NESY +2 and expect you to figure it out. But I think these are some interesting discussions, I think. And also, I've obviously tried to trip you up because that's funny. Yeah, I now have to awkwardly go load all these graphics that kind of need.
Yep.
But actually, let's just get your take on that quickly before we jump in then. Who is your player of this season?
Donk, for sure.
You've got Donk.
There's no way m0NESY or ZywOo beats him so far. I think, but that's also because of the fact that he like I'm still on that, like, he came out of nowhere. Like ZywOo, we've had him for years, and like I don't think he really elevated his level this year too much. Like he is just ZywOo. He's regular old ZywOo. m0NESY, I think, also plays at basically the same level he did last year. Like last year was his huge year. And we also, like, we've seen him coming for years. Like it's news and it's amazing, but Donk is just on a whole another level. Like nobody knew about this guy, and now he's here and he's very, very, very good, and he just keeps being very, very good. Like, yeah, I mean, I'm still sort of hinging on that. If they had won the major, like if they win that face game, even with all the illness and everything, that they had troubles with. All the other factors. If they win that phase game at the major, they do win the major, and then there's absolutely no question. Donk is the greatest player in up 2024. Uh, so
Okay. Well, you disagree with the community, who have
oh,
voted on my poll that I put up.
mhm.
They have 4% going to ZywOo, 32% to Donk, 64% Munacy votes.
Yeah, I mean, it is real that Donk has sort of like Donk spirit. It was inevitable that they would have not the best season, especially after like winning the major was like the big thing with like, if we do this, we complete our season because we have no other events lined up. And even the few events they did, they had some sort of small stumbles, but I think Donk is consistently at a very high level. And I think it is just that storyline thing about like he came out of fucking nowhere. Like even ZywOo, he sort of came out of nowhere, but he didn't win Katowice right off the bat. Like it's yeah, like we didn't even see this guy telegraphed for more than 3 months before he was a Katowice champion. And that's just so bizarre, honestly. It's just so strange. Um but that's where we are. So for me it still just has to be Donk at that point.
Okay. That's your take. I'm interested. It's interesting. Let's dive into this blind ranking then. So I've got an order. I'm going to give them to you in, and we'll see how this ends up looking visually. Apologies to anyone watching. It may not be as smooth as I'd hoped. But first up, 1 to 5. Where'd you put twists?
For 2024, oh, it's been with Liquid whole season. I'm debating between like 3 and 4 because I think he's played very, very good, but I also know that he's played a lot of. Do I get any time or do I need to do this very quickly?
Let's keep it relatively snappy. I mean,
I'll keep it relatively snappy and I'll put Twist at 3. I think we're good at
twisted
starting
3.
in the middle.
Okay. Xertion.
Xertion. Oh, fuck, he probably would have been my real number 3 because, like, this is the thing where you probably have Donk and ZywOo in this as well. But I think I would have put Xertion above Twists. So I'm going to say 2 just to stay consistent there.
Okay. Xertion at 2. We'll see if you regret it. I mean, there's no guarantee of anyone coming in. Electronic.
Yeah. I don't think he's had a good year. I think Cloud9 was mid, and I think he hasn't really come into VP. I mean, this is again, you're trying to trip me up. Like, if they're snappy in this, then if I put Electronic as 5th, that's gonna look stupid as fuck. But I could play it safe and put him 4, but I think I'm gonna put him 5. Actually, I don't think you have an. I think he's had a pretty bad season in general.
Okay. Elige.
Well, yeah, I'm gonna have to put him 4. I can't put him number
But
1.
4. Oh, wow. So
I can't put him number 1.
he's a worse season than Twists, worse season than Xertion.
I would
Oh,
say
that's
worst
rough.
season than Xertion. I
Yeah,
think
that's
he
fair. That's probably
has a
fair.
better season than Twist, but I think being 1 removed, that's still fair enough. So I'm gonna have to put him 4.
So you're
You're
number
trying to
one
trip me up.
player. Out of these
Yeah.
5, you think the best player, well, you blind ranked Rain as the best player out of the 5.
Yeah, I knew it. I knew it. I thought you would put someone obviously number 1 as the final one, and then I'd have gone like, oh, Elise number 1.
No, I did the
All right,
complete
so
opposite.
yeah, I have put. All right, so in hindsight,
Yeah, let's go hindsight back through this because I thought you were honestly when you were talking Twist 3-4, I was like, oh, you might do really well here because honestly,
mm,
4, 3-4 probably is the right like space to have Twists. Then Xertion at 2, I was like, ooh, it's gonna get interesting. And then Unleash 4, I was like, okay, this has gotten real awkward.
what
Real
is
awkward.
what's funny about like the twists and the leash? Like what I was saying when I put him 4 is like you could probably swap these a bit back and forth. Like somewhere in this region, Elise and Twist, I think should be 3rd and 4th. In my mind, when the number 1
Really?
was when someone ridiculous was number 1. Now it's Rain, so no. But like if you had Donk as the number 1, then Twist and Elise would have been 3rd and 4th. So in some order. I'm not sure which, because if you look at LAN performance, both teams did jack. Twist even had more LAN playoff runs than Complexity did, except for that one challenger win, which is like, yeah, it's big, but it's not huge. And they're sort of evenly matched. It's 121 versus 118, which is interesting. Like, those are fairly closely matched. I think if you're making a case for Elige being one of the top 10 players of the year, I think Twist also sort of has to be in that conversation. Because Liquid actually made a decent amount of playoff runs. Like, in the events they qualified for, they did a pretty good job. Complexity, I'm not even sure they had a single playoff run until Challenger. Because I think they missed out on...
Oh, they're top
Yeah,
four
they
at Pro
missed out
League,
on...
but yeah.
Yeah, top 4 at Pro League, but I think Liquid also made playoffs there. Which is, I mean, it's a bit...
No, they
Who
did. But the
cares?
question is, how many playoff games have Liquid won this year? Because I see 5th to 8th, 5th to
Oh,
6th, 7th, 8th. Like, are they just going straight to playoffs and losing?
probably not a huge amount, but they are making those deep rounds. Like, they're making it out of the group stage, which is, in my opinion, at least better than not doing that.
No, they have one playoff win this year. They beat FlyQuest 2-1.
Yeah. They are at least making it out of groups. I think making it to playoffs and then losing is better than not making playoffs at all. So I think those two are fairly evenly matched. I think Sershin stands clear of both of them, because I think he has
Yeah,
a
that's fair.
similar level of performance and event wins. Between Electronic and Rain, I feel like this is sort of context dependent, because I think Rain has had a decent year for what him and FaZe are supposed to do. Like, they're making deep runs. They won Chengdu. Rain has a fine individual performance. Meanwhile, Electronic has, in my opinion, underperformed. And they haven't done shit. So okay, he's a 108 on LAN average so far. Maybe he hasn't underperformed. It's mostly the VP stint where he's underperformed. He actually did very well on Cloud9, but Cloud9 also didn't do anything. So,
Well, he's got as
I
many playoff
probably...
appearances as Twist does,
Yeah, but
and as many
he's
playoff
also
wins.
just he hasn't played as well, and VP haven't. Yeah, on VP, he just hasn't done anything so far. He had one good event to Dallas where they just didn't do anything.
No, I do think Electronic
And
actually last might be good. That might be your best placement.
yeah, but it's sort of dependent on context, because like Rain isn't the guy who's going to carry FaZe to event wins. A 105 on LAN while winning one event and making several finals and playoffs, that's good. Meanwhile, Electronic, he makes one playoff appearance, and he moved teams. In the first team, he was very good. They didn't do jack. He was the Elige, sort of. In the second team, he's just been pretty mid, like even worse than Rain statistically. I think Electronic fifth is fine here. So my actual ranking would probably be Zershin at the top.
Yep.
I probably would put Elige because of the Jönköping win. If he doesn't win Jönköping, I think Elige goes below Twists, just because of the lack of playoffs. But Twist definitely goes for third, and then Rain goes fourth, and then Electronic fifth. That's probably my actual ranking of these.
Okay. Well, that's the blind rank. Just something we could try. And we're going to finish off the show with an old favorite of mine. It's Dr. Duck's diagnosis. Now, let me open
Dr. Duck today with an absolutely seized up neck, which is something an actual doctor might need to look at some point.
Yeah.
But
so this one shouldn't be too long. We might be able to keep it under an hour. It depends on how much you waffle. Liquid. They have cut 2 players. Let's just pretend. Cadian and Skulls are gone. They're not both official. Rebuild this team. You can only make additions. You got to add 2 players.
I can only make additions.
You can't cut another player. I thought that'd be fun to let you put you in a box a little bit. You can't cut another player. You're stuck with Twists. You're stuck with Yukindar. And you're stuck with whoever the third person is that's currently just not in my head. I don't know why.
Okay, so for this, I have thought about this a little bit. I am gonna respect the goal of I'm gonna respect the goal that Liquid has, which is to play the America's Armor. So you've cut an American player and you've cut a European player. So you want a European opper. There's no way you're getting an American or Asian opper who is going to compete with a European opper. So we're going to have to start with the anchor spot where we need to put an American, South or North American, uh,
Yep.
uh, or an Asian player. And in my opinion, let's see, I'm just going to quickly graze through the South American ranking to see if there's anyone I would want instead of Skulls, but I don't think anyone jumps out at me. Uh, uh, just as an honorable mention, I might put out Vinny because I think that could have worked. I'm not too sure on the roles. I like Vinny. But let's just skip that. I think you have 3 options for an Asian or American anchor player right now, and we can start with the least exciting, which is Rec out of M80, who I think is a gamble. It's not exactly a sexy signing. Um, it's not exactly a sexy signing, but it is something that could work. But I'm not gonna pick him. I think he's the least interesting one. And then I think you could have gone for Heavy God. We talked about him earlier. But I think he's set for Cloud9. I think he would do better picking Cloud9 over Liquid, so I'm just not gonna mention him. The no-brainer signing for an Asian or Oceanic or American anchor for Liquid right now is JKS, in my opinion. I think it's a no-brainer. I think they should pick up JKS at this point. Because I think they would have done well with him, and it still leaves them with the option to play the Americas RVAR. And I think JKS would be fine with it because Liquid are based in the Netherlands. So his entire thing of like wanting to get a European visa, that still works. He can still live in Europe, operate in Europe. So I think JKS is my no-brainer anchor. And now I just have to find any good European opper. Let's have a little thinky dink. Deco is one which sort of jumps off the page. I think you could have gone for Hades and been half decent. Slend could have been interesting,
Slend could have if
but
they could have, we got him before anyone else did.
yeah, but I think Deco might be the one which sort of screams at me a bit. I've heard bad stuff about Deco as well, but I think Liquid at this point they need to make a change and they might need to take a chance on someone. Um, could go with Head Trick, but Waro also exists. All right, there's some interesting ones here. I'm very much in the CIS region, but I think out of those, oh, they're trying to do the Twists IGL thing. I don't know about the Twists fucking IGL thing. I think we take Head Trick and we just go shut up, play op. And that's what we're doing. So I'm gonna say
Oof.
JKS. I'm gonna say JKS and Head Trick, and that's my new liquid. I know they were looking at
Head
Wrinkle,
trick.
which probably would have been better than Head Trick, but I'm not
Yeah.
gonna put him out of NIP right now. And they basically said that's not happening. They were interested, but it's not happening.
Okay, an interesting roster you've cobbled together.
Yeah.
Yeah, the idea that we have to have twist side yelling is rough, I think, for anyone considering these sorts of discussions, like a rookie IGL essentially.
If they are doing that, I would pick Head Trick. If I have the option of picking the IGL as well, which in this case I think I do, and
Yeah.
I think I might just pick Waro and just let him have the reins.
Okay.
In practice, that might just be bringing in even more issues because you're bringing in another perspective into this, where you now have JK, like you still have the Yekindar thing. Like Yekindar probably still wants to be IGL. I'm assuming. I don't know why that would change. Um, and you're bringing in another perspective into that. Could be complicated. So in that case, I might bring Waro instead. But I mean, any generic European opera, whenever they make the transfer, whoever is like top 5 in and isn't signed to a tier 1 team would work. So, um, but I think JKS is a no-brainer for me. I think they need that sort of player, and he's free and lets them keep the America spot. Um, and then just a deco, a head trick, a Waro even. So yeah, I'm gonna go with head trick. I'm gonna stick with head trick, but JKS and head trick, yeah.
Okay. I think like the JKS was coming. I felt that one. Just
Yeah.
as you started considering anchor spots, it's like, yeah, it's because this is going to end with everyone's favorite smile, Reddit's hometown boy,
Yeah.
making an appearance. But no, it does get a bit awkward when you think about the AWPer spot, and you proved that because you listed a bunch of guys, and every time I was like, eh,
Yeah.
this is ugly. This is not a fun
Yeah.
situation to be in. So yeah, if they could have got Wrinkle, that maybe would have been a bit more interesting given his level of play right now. But, seeing as they're not going to get Wrinkle, yeah, I'd be concerned in terms of the AWPing options. But hey, there's still rifle talent on the team. They bring in JKS. At
Yeah.
least we know he can play anchor spots at a high level.
Yeah.
It's a bonus, but
Do you do you want a funny one? If I can only make additions plus Katie and bring him back, that would be my probably be. I mean, just bring him back and make them listen to him. Listen to him, my king. Like, yeah. So,
yeah, Cadian, but
no.
with more authority this time.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Well, okay, well, that kind of wraps up the show. We have just crept over the hour mark, but hey, it's not an
Ah.
hour 30 minutes like we always do. Uh, not something silly. But yeah, thanks for tuning in. If you made it this far, you're my hero. It's going to be a boring summer. Not much Counter-Strike to watch, but enjoy the football. As long as you're not watching England, that should be possible. And we'll see you next week. Which is that going to be the last one of the week of the month? It is. So members, Q&A's coming up. So be sure to actually look out for that post. And yeah,
Ask funny questions and also very nice ones.
agreed. All right. Goodbye.